Let's start the show.
For Thursday, February the 18th, 2016. It's the 18th, 2016. Welcome to This Is Only a Test, the official podcast of Tested.com. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of This Is Only a Test. I'm Norm, your host, and we have a mix-up today. A different crew. Well, to my left, here as always, our senior science correspondent, Kishore Hari.
I'm not part of the mix-up, am I?
No, you're not part of the mix-up. Yeah, but no Jeremy Williams this week. And in his stead, we have a very special guest to Kishore's left. It's Frank Ippolito.
Hi.
Frank from Tested. Also co-host of the Creature Geek podcast.
Yeah, which our new one comes out tomorrow.
It's a really good podcast. You may have seen Frank in a bunch of our videos, anything to do with special effects, makeup, prosthetics, and in his shop in LA, and a new series coming soon. We can tease that now, where we learn some cool shop tips directly from you.
Shop tip. Yeah, I hinted at it on my Instagram the other day, and people are into it.
That's cool. Are you going to build off of your favorite things? A video from the end of last year?
Kinda. Some of it will be equipment and tools in the shop, and some of it will be just kind of dummy solutions of things that might be super obvious to some people, but maybe other people that don't have the exposure that we do in the shops.
Or I think the idea really is, when we go to Adam's shop, the Cave, he is such a unique. His operating procedure is really unique.
Mm-hmm.
And we love it for that. He builds his own cabinets, his own shelving, his own tool cases. That's a high level, very Adam-specific way of doing things. A lot of people who may be moving from smaller garage shops to the first shared shop or bigger shop for the first time, or just building for the first time in their garage, there are a lot of tools and techniques that they don't know. And that's what we're introducing to them. Things that, Adam may not think about because he's been doing it for forever, but for you, it's something you actually have to use every day.
Yeah. I mean, Adam's got his own style and stuff. I can't operate the same way as Adam does sometimes.
We will get to tech news, but I did want to talk about some entertainment news to start this week. Now, two of us here have seen Deadpool already. Frank, you haven't seen Deadpool yet?
No.
That's okay.
Are you excited to see it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm a dummy. I like all superhero movies. So.
You don't have to be a dummy to like superhero movies.
No,
I mean, give us that caveat.
I kind of blanket just about all of them.
What'd you think of the last Fantastic Four?
I didn't see it.
Yeah, that's the right answer.
Everybody kept.
That's my litmus test.
I didn't see that, and I didn't see Green Lantern, which both are movies that
apparently
people
terrible.
Said that.
Well, they are terrible.
There's no reason to even watch them. So.
Well, I do want to talk about Fantastic Four in a little bit since you mentioned it. And Kishore and I saw Deadpool over the weekend, and Frank and I are going to see Deadpool tonight. We're going to review Deadpool, or talk about it at least without spoiling it.
Oh, wait, you said that online. My girlfriend's going to hear that I go to see Deadpool without her.
Does she want to see it?
Yeah, we have to keep that everybody keep that a secret. Don't let her know.
Yeah. All right. Be very, very quiet. Deadpool release, the story behind it was I believe director Tim Miller had been working on getting this movie made for almost half a decade, maybe even over that. And the movie's out. It's been reviewed very well. It is an incredible, unfathomable success from the fan perspective and from the Hollywood money bean counting perspective.
What about from your perspective?
Well, we'll get to that. I want to give the full context.
Did you guys see Tim Gunn's open letter to Hollywood?
Yeah. So we're going to talk about all that stuff, and we'll maybe retouch on this in still entitled. But Deadpool made $135 million on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. $150 million if you do the it's FSSM, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, as the box office counters would say.
And it was up against that Zoolander 2 juggernaut.
My fear, actually, I was leading up to Deadpool. I definitely saw the reviews and saw Zoolander was doing poorly, but I didn't have as faith in America. I thought America would go watch Zoolander 2.
Can I tell you that I saw Zoolander 2?
Did you actually see it?
Sam and I wanted to go see a movie on Valentine's Day, and
the right answer is Deadpool.
And the lines were too long, and I didn't pre-buy tickets, and I don't want to be a chud and wait in line for 500 years. I like to buy at the theaters where you could pick your seat when it's
Yeah.
something like that. And it was all the good seats were sold out. So I was like, let's go see our second choice. Sam
Zoolander
really
2.
wanted to see Zoolander 2 also. So we saw Zoolander 2.
It's a
and
cult favorite.
I like the original.
and if you like, it's just like the first one. It's just as dumb, just as
Just like Force
yeah.
Awakens was the same movie.
Wow.
No.
Wow. Zoolander 2 panned for being unoriginal, for being derivative, for not capturing on any of the magic of the original. The original actually is a cult hit because Zoolander 2 came out like the weekend after 9/11 or something. And so like it didn't get a lot of attention. It became one of those big college movies. It really rose in popularity because it was released on DVD around the same time as like BitTorrent and a lot of video sharing sites that are happening. So it really was one of those failed the box office and then had its huge life, like a lot of cult movies do. Anyway, Zoolander 2, huge disappointment. Did you like the movie? Your out of 10 review.
I mean, if Zoolander 1, comparing it to Zoolander 1, if Zoolander 1 was a 10, like Zoolander 2 is like an 8.
80% is good.
80% as good as the original.
as
I mean,
Zoolander 1.
but again, like I'm kind of a dummy. I like everything. Like I can always optimist. How about that? Like I always find like kind of the good
Frank's
in things.
movie site. 2 thumbs up always.
Usually.
Wait, what are we talking about? We're talking about Deadpool. That's right. Let's bounce back up. Okay. Deadpool. Kishore, you love the movie. I enjoyed the movie. America has fallen in love with the movie. And as Frank was alluding to, Hollywood is now doing with the Hollywood thing. And
What Norm can't appreciate here is that this was a very original movie that had some unique flavors to it. And it's almost like he was joyless watching this movie.
I watched it with a
Didn't
critical
appreciate-
eye.
You need to watch
He
it
was
with
joyless.
me with dummy eyes and just be like, this is fun.
Hey,
Like that.
I enjoyed it. I
Sometimes
enjoyed it
breaking the
from
fourth
beginning
wall can be
to
really
end.
fun.
Kishore, you're talking as if I didn't enjoy it. I enjoyed it. My point being, I want to talk about R-rated movies and what made this movie a success, because that's what people are talking about going forward. You know, 2 things could have happened with Deadpool. It could have come out and it could have been a failure. It could have been marketed poorly. It could have been ill-received. Obviously, that didn't happen. And if it had been ill-received, it would have gone the way of John Carter, where the studios would have blamed the filmmaker and blamed the fans and said, hey, we gave you something you wanted. You've been asking for it. We gave you exactly what you wanted. It didn't succeed. We'll
And there's been
never
a couple
give you what
failures.
you want ever again.
Like Veronica Mars, like a couple of years ago.
Yeah, a couple of the fan favorite movies where the directors gave the movie, and to be fair, plenty of good movies that were just marketed poorly, like Dread, right? The rated R Dread movie with Carl Urban. You know,
Excellent.
It was
Excellent
better
movie.
than the original Judge Dredd.
totally, but not marketed well, and we most likely won't get a sequel. Deadpool marketed very well, made for about $58 million, made
Sequel's already greenlit.
Sequel's already greenlit, but the fear now is that Hollywood is the reason they think Deadpool's a success is because it had the swears, it had the bloods, and
The comic book fan base will appreciate the hard R now.
and the hard R. That's all. And
I
so
mean-
they've already said Wolverine. They announced at Toy Fair this past weekend that Wolverine, the third one, they're going to try to make it rated R now. Just
Oh,
for the
that's
sake,
ridiculous.
because that's what the fans want. That is a complete
what the fans
misreading.
want.
They want something original and different.
Well, hard R was authentic for Deadpool, and I really liked Deadpool. I'm not gonna, front about it. Not everything was perfect in that movie, but it was authentically fit Deadpool. That we saw a really true to the comics Deadpool movie, and that's why it worked as an R.
It was an R not because the character and the writing and
Yeah.
that character, that story needed it to be an R. There are plenty of superhero movies that don't need to be R. I don't think Batman needs to be a rated R film.
no.
You know, Dark Knight showed that you could do that type of the terror that Batman inflicts and that type of story without
That's
being
borderline
an R.
to me.
I do think
Guardians is like a group of characters like that are more campy. They can't be an R because it makes no sense for them to be an R.
yes, but the fear going into Deadpool, because once the superhero movie's marked rated R, people make a huge deal about it. Oh, we embrace the R, the rating. We go all out, and I don't need them to tell me that. Just make a good movie.
How much do you want to bet that the next Deadpool will be PG-13 so that because the studios will go, no, we need to make sure that the kids can see it too. We're
No,
gonna make
no,
more
no,
money.
no.
I don't think so.
No,
I think
I-
there's too much pushback
Yeah,
and too much goodwill.
yeah. I think
Yeah, but Hollywood is kind of stupid sometimes.
Hollywood's stupid all the times, not just sometimes. They're only sometimes that they're not stupid. They're stupid way more than they're not stupid. So Wolverine, I'll be glad that it'll be rated R, but that just means don't hold back on telling the story. Good. You can make a good film without being rated R, but it's tough to do a darker story. Tell the darker story, and you can avoid camp without without just going to gore.
Well, I mean, I think if you look at like the original RoboCop versus the remake of RoboCop, that remake should have been R, and I think it hurt it because it wasn't.
Right, and it's not about RoboCop, blowing people's heads off. It's the reason that story, I think,
I mean, that's an
needed to be
ultra-violent
R,
story.
is the ultra-violent part. The important part of that story that needs to be ultra-violent for the story perspective is Murphy's death.
Well, and the destruction that his enemies are causing. Like it has to be an enemy that needs a robot dude, like a superhuman robot dude to fight.
Yeah.
Like you can't just have a guy that's just robbing banks.
Right, it needs to be a desperate city.
Yeah.
Right, like that's why RoboCop is the ultimate cop, because he's inhuman, but of course tied to his humanity. But his death also, the violence of his death, was what made the original so compelling.
I mean, I don't mind an R where it's going to make sense. Like if Wolverine's an R because Logan uses a lot of language.
It's not about the swears.
That. No, but there's a gradient across R's. Though,
Wolverine's
right?
got to cut the shit out of some people.
That's the thing. Like the problem with Wolverine in the movies, one of the biggest problems with Wolverine in the movies is that all he does is stab with no blood. Like his Berserker rage, which they made such a big deal out of in X-Men 2 when the soldiers, Stryker soldiers, invade the mansion. He just stabbed the guy in the foot and flipped him up, like that. Oh, like in the comics, and you can get it. You don't need to show the gore. You can just imply that he's cutting people to shreds.
Yeah, it's
like
hyper-violence.
Right,
Like, yeah.
and you can have that off camera. There are like scenes in the comic books where Wolverine tells the Kitty Pryde, hide her eyes, like I'm messing people up. But yeah, you never get that across. So it's about being true to the character. It's not about just having swears for the sake of swears and having gore for the sake of it. And that's difficult for a movie because the difference between a PG-13 movie and an R movie is a lot in terms of box office, who can see it. Now on TV, different story. You can have a lot of ultra-violence on TV or a lot of gratuitous violence on TV or not gratuitous violence on TV when you're talking about shows on Netflix and shows on Hulu and shows on cable and HBO. And one of our favorite shows of last year was Daredevil. Looking forward to and we've all seen Daredevil season 1 here.
Yeah.
Daredevil season 2 coming out soon, and the trailer was just released.
Mm-hmm.
It shows the Punisher.
I was so excited to see a Frank character finally get its due. And as a Frank, do you feel any sort of kinship with Mr. Castle?
Well, they've made some pretty crappy Punisher movies. Like there's
They
been
made 2 of them.
Yeah, there's been hit and miss parts.
I'm sorry, 3 of them.
3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought Thomas Jane was okay as
God,
Punisher.
I think he's one of the most overrated actors. He can't. Okay, I get that Thomas Jane loves Punisher. I get that. I get that he really wanted to be Punisher. He wanted to be Jonah Hex also, but he's just not the right. If you love the character, love it enough to not want to be him.
That one was okay.
I feel like the Punisher films need to be done the same way that those Frank Miller, like
the Sin City,
the Sin Cities and stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's I think
one great interpretation of it. I think I mean, we've had Punisher movies. There's a whole genre of Punisher movies. You look at any of those Stallone, Kevin Bacon ones where the revenge movies, all the Taken movies, those are all essentially Punisher movies. A Man on Fire, like all of that stuff. He doesn't need to be cast in the superhero world with fantastical villains. It's about a force of will.
I think Batman and Punisher.
What was the guy that was in the Death Wish movies?
Charles Bronson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're just Bronson movies. They're not Punisher movies. They're Bronson
They're
movies.
Bronson movies. Punisher, the character, is basically the Death Wish character.
Yeah.
Put in the comic book world. And the things that make the Punisher like unique to comic books is obviously like there's some crossovers and some of his villains or have more flourish than in other movies. But really, it's just a dude who lives in his van, and all he wants to do, his family was killed, and he wants to kill some mobsters.
Band down by the river. You know what I think?
That'd be a great little
from watching this
Easter egg.
trailer, is that I think that they're talking about Punisher and they're making it look like it's Daredevil versus Punisher. I think that there's a villain in there, and there's going to be a greater villain that they have to team up and fight.
Oh, of course.
That's what I
it'll
think.
be, but it's a
they haven't
reluctant team up.
Yeah.
And the trailer is great because it really establishes not only like what the Punisher is doing in terms of his actions, but his philosophy. And he says it in like 3 lines in the trailer, which is perfect. Like I
Those
think
lines are great.
they're great. He talks about Daredevil, thinking Daredevil's a coward.
You're like
he's a half
one
measure.
bad day away
You're
from
one bad day away from being me, and you get that. Like that. Punisher is a reflection. The reason he's great in the Marvel universe is because he stands against, in contrast, against the purity of the superhero. They will not kill, which like works in that world, doesn't work in the real world. And Daredevil in Netflix universe, in that Marvel Cinematic universe, the conflict he has of being a good person, but also at night, having these anger issues and trying to, beat up criminals, that comes to a head when you have someone who just kills the criminals.
Now, I have a problem with Daredevil. I can't stand his mask in this TV show.
Oh, the new mask?
Yeah, they
what's
they
wrong
showed
with
it
it?
at the end of the first season. It looks like, at risk of being very un-PC, it looks like he's got Down syndrome.
You mean the way it covers his face?
Yeah, the eyes and the forehead are just way too low on it. It just doesn't look right. Like, as much as the Ben Affleck Daredevil was really stupid, I loved that mask.
I saw that mask in person.
I
We saw it in
worked
person, yeah.
on Daredevil, dude.
But we saw that mask recently at
Where?
Fox.
Oh, yeah, that's right. When we were picking up the Martian
When we were
suit.
picking up
That's
the
right.
Martian
It was
suit,
just like in there.
it was just next to Magneto's helmet.
So it was
Yeah.
like Ark of the Covenant, the Daredevil mask.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then
pretty much.
It was
Yeah.
pretty
It's
much
Ben
like one of
Affleck
those.
Daredevil mask
Yeah.
and Magneto's helmet from like X2 or something.
Well, the guy that sculpted the Daredevil helmet from the Ben Affleck one is a guy named Jose Fernandez, who owns a company called Ironhead now, and they do all the really great great superhero suit work. Like they did the new Batman stuff, they did the Wonder Woman, and tons of stuff.
So the reason I think you
Black
like,
Panther.
correct me if I'm wrong, the reason I think you like that Ben Affleck Daredevil mask is because in the comic books, you can't tell what materials are. That's how comic books get away with a lot of their masks. Like Batman's mask, is it supposed to be a rigid form? Is it a solid, like hard material, Kevlar, or is it like a cloth material, right? And they fudge with that, and leather is like the compromise. The Daredevil mask is molded for the Ben Affleck one, but it's still form-fitting, so it looks like the silhouette looks like it is in the comic books, where it's just like a mask he pulls over his head and just pulls tight. The new one clearly is more in the vein of like the Captain America layered fabrics and stitched.
I don't think that's what bothers me. I think that it's the shape and that it gives. It's all about the
You think
the
it should be
forms.
more devil-like?
No, not devil-like. I think that there's a finesse about sculpting things like cowls and heads and like look at all the Batman cowls, all the different renditions of that, whether it's Clooney's or Val Kilmer's or the Chris Nolan ones. Like they all have like a little bit of nuance. They're all unmistakably Batman, or you look at Batman Dead End, the one that Henry Alvarez sculpted, or you look at these new ones that Jose Fernandez sculpted. Like they all have, there's a subtlety and there's a real hard balance to strike when you're making a superhero like helmet or tight-fitting cowl.
Cows are tough because
Yeah.
you got to have a strong chin for it to work. You can't have a lot of hair for it to work because it can't bunch up.
Yeah.
Like I said, comics cheat to get away with a lot of the drawing stuff, because there's, Neil Adams Batman, there's not a lot of depth. You can't tell from the angles how wide that cowl is.
Yeah.
And it's even like remember the movie The Phantom with Billy Zane?
Yeah.
The cowl he wore looked good, but he shaved his head
Yeah.
for all of those scenes to wear that, so it wouldn't bulge up and bunch up on his head. Here, it definitely looks a little bulkier on Daredevil because obviously, Matt Murdock has a full head of hair.
I just don't like the design of it. It's not about the materials. It's not about. I mean, I'm sure that the company that built it is probably a very capable company. I think that there's just somewhere in that there's a design that's just.
From the story perspective, I mean, the thing that took me out of the series, I love the Daredevil season 1, but that last shot of him in the costume is like the unnecessary shot. I liked him so much more.
It didn't fit in with the rest of the of that season.
Of the grungy ninja, that character is Daredevil, the guy who's new vigilante.
The only thing I'm just marginally worried about from the trailer for season 2 is that we didn't actually get a whole lot of Daredevil. in the trailer. He's only in it for a couple shots, so we'll see what that means.
I'm
I don't
sure
think,
there's gonna be a lot.
Yeah, I don't think
imagine so, but like that's the only thing. There was a lot of Frank Castle.
Well, I mean, and that's fine. And he's a great character. I think that Jay Barenthal, or not Jay Barenthal, what's the guy playing the guy from The Walking Dead?
Playing the Punisher guy?
Yeah, playing the Punisher.
Playing Frank.
Again, there have been 3 previous versions of the Punisher on screen: Dolph Lundgren, Thomas Jane, and Race Stevenson. I want to say in the Lexi Alexander movie.
Dolph Lundgren.
I think the last one got the closest to the Punisher, at least in the look. Thomas Jane just looked like a dude in his garage with a big T-shirt.
That's true.
And yeah, Thomas Jane I can't stand Thomas Jane as the Punisher. He wasn't no nonsense enough, and this Punisher in the Netflix Daredevil season 2 series looks no nonsense.
I think he looks. I don't have any problem with the way he looks. I hope it works out.
For people who, after Daredevil came out, and after these Jessica Jones came out, you obviously want to maybe if you're interested, pick up the comic book trades and read up on the characters if you aren't familiar with them. For people who aren't familiar with the Punisher, there's a lot of great Punisher comics. I would recommend the Garth Ennis Punisher Max series that started around 2004, I believe, and it goes on. It's fantastic.
I really couldn't get into Jessica Jones.
The show.
Yeah,
It was a hard watch. It was a good watch, but I think it was not easy.
I think they were
get
trying to
through
market
that.
it to like girls, like too much making out.
I'm shutting that down. All right, let's talk about some tech news. So a couple things have happened in the world of technology since last week. One most notably, Google, and maybe everyone should have expected this because Google in recent years has really shut down, speaking of shutting things down, shut down a lot of the interesting side projects. They bought SketchUp, sold it off. They shut down, obviously, Google Reader, huge deal. And
That
now
one hurt.
Picasa.
I still use Picasa. I might be one of the few. Though everything is porting over to Google Photos right now. And I think that makes sense to a certain extent, especially because of how everything they're pushing everything in the cloud, and Picasa to a certain extent was about sort of local storage. But I like the facial identification that was within Picasa. I think that technology is going to port over to Google Photos, but I have to say, tier for Picasa. It made it longer than a lot of the other side projects. 2005, 2004, something like that.
Totally. And I totally get why they got rid of it. As you mentioned, photo storage, as majority of photos now are being taken by smartphones. The smartphones are all obviously internet connected, and there are apps like Google Photos, like iCloud, on the Apple side, that take your photos to store them and index them on the web. And local storage, really managing local storage from your SD card, is really something that's relegated to the prosumer market with Lightroom and even less so Aperture now. Lightroom has gotten hugely popular. I think it's don't think of it as being too complicated. I know you have to pay like $100 for a license.
I love Lightroom.
But yeah, you can manage 50, 100,000 photos, no problem. It has the facial recognition stuff. But it is a sad day that all these free, at least one of the premier free photo management tools, local photo management tools, is going away.
Hopefully, this isn't a sign for what's ahead for Flickr.
So it's going to go down.
I use Flickr.
Flickr is a web.
It's different, but I mean, I think Flickr emerged about the same time as Picasa emerged.
So it's not going away today, but Picasa will go away starting in March. So it will start shuttering the Picasa desktop app, and then May the web albums will no longer be available. That's a little sad. Next up, you put the Skynet has arrived.
Yeah, this is a little bit of a scary story. So there's leaked documents from the NSA that emerged talking about their tracking and algorithm for identifying terrorists for drone strikes in Pakistan. And these leaked slides indicated some really terrifying things. So I think there's two. One is that their algorithm for identifying people, they basically tap their cell phones and use like GPS data from them and behavior to sort of track people and identify if they're potential terrorist threats. the leak slides indicate that the error rate is as high as 50% in terms of identification of these people, which is a pretty big problem, which means these drone strikes might be mistargeting, may have killed, 2,000 to 5,000 innocent people. And the second terrifying thing is they've named the program Skynet.
Why?
What the hell?
Well, according to the documentary Terminator and Terminator 2, I mean, it's you shouldn't have been so surprised about this.
I don't know. It just reeks of just arrogance inside the NSA that you would call it Skynet.
Wasn't Terminator a Michael Moore documentary?
I miss the part where
they took our jobs,
driving around Washington D.C. engaging senators.
All right. Well, I did also talk about a toy fair being this past week. I really wish I was there. I've never actually been to a toy fair.
Oh, it's not like it was in the 90s.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, back with the glory days of McFarlane Toys.
I used to work for McFarlane Toys, and I got to go to Toy Fair when I worked
jealous.
there. It's just not the same because I think that the toy and the collectible market's completely different than it was in the 90s.
You think it's less middle end and more differentiated between high end and low end? Kind of split off from the middle.
Well, the market's changed. Originally, if you look at pre McFarlane days, it was like very classic Star Wars looking
Kenner
figures.
Hasbro.
Yeah, Kenner Hasbro kind of stuff. And then McFarlane came in and hired a bunch of model kit sculptors, completely changed that whole industry.
Mm-hmm.
And then they since have sort of dropped the ball. They got too big for their britches or whatever it is. And everybody else has picked up where they left off, and now it's turned in like those model kit sculptors are doing collectibles, like mass-produced collectibles, and then the action figure stuff is, it's less actiony than I think it used to be, and everything. It's totally different market.
I think that's what I'm saying. Like in the heyday, in the late '90s, early thousands, when you had companies like McFarlane Toys, being smart about putting real good design and art into these collectibles, into these action figures, and then partnering with manufacturing, mostly in China, to put them at a reasonable cost. You get a really detailed figure. They did all these mover ones, for about $15, $20. Great price, high detailed stuff. Now it's kind of split off. You have NECA still holding that middle ground, NECA Toys, but then
NECA is a bunch of people from McFarlane that
right.
kind of broke off
and so, but now you have a lot of the reemergence of the the Hasbro Kenner stuff, kind of on the low end, but not nearly as great. That Star Wars Black Series stuff, not that great.
Kind of hit and miss.
And then a lot of stuff on the high end, over $100 market.
Oh yeah.
Because as these toy collectors who grew up in the '90s have grown up with more disposable income, people in the room included, we've loved the higher end collectibles. But something that was announced at Toy Fair, Mattel announced a new 3D printer, a $300 3D printer, 3D printing toy studio for kids.
This looks super, super dumb. Like, I'd be really interested to see what Sean thinks about this and Jeremy thinks about this, just as people that 3D print more than me. But, like, is a 3D printer really a toy? Is that how you want to market it? I know they're not marketing it that way, but like think about all like the jams and like the heating element, just from a safety issue, and then how long it takes to print. Like, it just doesn't seem like marketing it towards kids is a successful strategy.
The way they're able to market this to the kids, and this is obviously a device, not like the Easy Bake oven, but like something that they want kids to work with adults, their parents, on using. It's $300, so it's affordable, relatively. It's a PLA printer, but the big thing is the software. So there are two big hurdles to 3D printing. One is the software interface, getting the things you design or want to print to the printer, and two, the maintenance of the printer. They haven't talked a lot about the maintenance of the printer yet, and how easy it's going to be. It's going to be a PLA printer.
It's going to take some time to figure that out, too.
The thing they've said is, all the prints will be safe for kids 3 years and up, and the print head will retract when it's not printing.
Whatever.
That's just a stupid thing. But on the software side, they have partnered with Autodesk to release an app. You can download the app now, build your models,
app looks
and
great.
send it over.
The app looks great, and partnering with Autodesk, I think that seems great. I can't get over this dumb stock image of like these kids surrounded by 3D prints. And
So
their
many
dad.
3D prints. That's
It
like,
would have taken them a year to print all of that
look at
stuff.
those colors too. All those different colors of the 3D prints. The dad is wearing a 3D printed bow tie.
Oh, I didn't even notice that till now. That's terrible.
Well, I think
Hey
what
Frank,
you.
let's stop tearing the. We can hear that on the podcast.
Oh.
Thanks.
I don't have a computer in front of me like you guys, so I got to do something to keep myself occupied.
Share. Yeah, ridiculous. I don't think anyone's gonna really adopt. Let's put it this way. I think the best way for parents to get their kids into 3D printing is to learn 3D printing themselves. Pick up something like a printer bot, learn through all the technical challenges, and then decide whether they want to, get their kids into 3D printing one step at a time. Don't buy your kids a 3D printer and then become the IT person for it.
I like how it's rated for 3-year-olds and up.
3 and up. Yeah, a 3-year-old.
I'm letting my
no.
3-year-old.
It's the prints themselves are toys.
I
rated
know,
3
I'm
and up.
just
The
kidding.
printer itself isn't actually age 3 and up. Speaking of technical problems that can happen, hard drive reliability.
That was a good segue.
That's not a good. Apparently, the truth is out.
Let's-
Adam hates all my segues. I'm never gonna stop doing them. Do you guys back up your data?
I do. I use Backblaze right now.
Frank, what do you use to back up your data? Because you have a lot of assets.
Oh yeah. Every couple of months, I'll buy another hard drive and dump everything onto onto that new hard drive. And
That's your backup strategy.
I'm an idiot. I'm not a. I don't know. That's.
We have some videos for you
costs-
to watch on Tested.com.
I know. I think I've asked Will and Norm about how to do this better. And
The way to do it better, honestly, and I had a big fear of doing this a long time, was just paying for a subscription service. I pay $100 a year, and
What do you use?
Backblaze, and there, Crash Plan, Backblaze. Ooh, sorry, I just unlocked my keyboard. Crash Plan, Backblaze, all these services, they're all pretty reliable. I don't worry about uploading because the majority of the uploads happens in the first couple weeks of it, and it's all on their servers, encrypted. I can access the files on an app, and if my computer goes kaput, they can either mail me a drive that has my files, or I can just download them all again, and saves the hassle of having to put stuff on physical drives in my house.
my shop is in the worst place in the universe for bandwidth. And I tried that once, and it just takes months for me to upload all of my whole portfolio, 20 some years of working in
terabytes.
movies. Yeah, so it's stupid. So I've never successfully done. I've tried, and it's easier for me to every couple of months spend $100 or whatever. Twice a year, I'll buy a brand new hard drive, back everything up.
And those drives are getting much bigger now. You can buy a 5 terabyte drive now, no problem.
So what should he buy?
Well, one of the things that Backblaze's service does is a public service is release its hard drive reliability reports, and they've done this for every quarter in the past couple of years because they go through tons of hard drives of all different brands, different speeds, and in past reports they had a huge problem with specific Seagate models of drives. Some that I've also had problems with. Haven't bought those drives in a while. I stick to my Western Digital Greens for 2 terabyte stuff. Totally happy with that. You can get a 2 terabyte drive for $70 these days.
Yeah,
which
I
is
have the greens as well.
insane. But their new report shows much improvement in the Seagate drives. They still love,
Except for one.
They still love the HGST drives, and their failure rates are still in the around under 3-4%. There is one Seagate model, 1.5 terabyte, that has a 10% failure rate, and so don't buy model ST315000541AS. You can also just search Backblaze hard drive reliability 2015, and they'll list all the models. And it's a really great thing to do if you're looking to buy drives like Frank for backing up locally.
Oh, I can't wait to read the comments.
They're gonna be nice to you. I understand.
No,
When you
last time
load-
I was on this podcast, they didn't like me.
So when I started Backblaze for the first time, and I have good bandwidth, it still took 3 weeks for me to get an initial backup going. So
Oh, really?
it's not illegitimate what you just talked about.
Right. And the good thing about those drives is they will also those services they'll also back up USB connected drives too. like the drives that aren't just. I don't think they do NAS, but they do USB. Anyway, we're always looking for higher density storage. We've talked about
and reliable storage.
and reliable storage. I mean, do you guys remember the days of the like Western Digital Bigfoot drives and back when Adam's talked about showing his bit, right?
Mhm.
He has a giant bit and like a giant hard drive hanging in the cave.
Isn't it like a terabyte, that big giant one? Or a gigabyte or something like that?
It's a gigabyte.
Yeah.
It's not even that much. And,
Yeah.
we have like SD cards now that are, 128 gigs,
Yeah.
micro SD cards. They go up to, 512 gigs, no problem. Growing up, the first computer I built had a 6.4 gigabyte Western Digital Bigfoot drive. Was it even Western Digital? No, Quantum Bigfoot.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And I thought back then, wow, 6.4 gigs, really like six gigs. I'd never need another drive again. That's like 10 CDs. Right?
I felt that way when I got a zip drive once.
I love that. Frank, did you see this Weta video that was released recently?
Which one?
One of the guys who works with Weta that films behind the scenes footage from he does all the behind the scenes footage in like the Blu-ray packs. He's followed Weta for like 20 years now. He cut together a piece back in 1993 when Peter Jackson was directing that first Natalie Portman movie. Kate Winslet movie.
Oh,
The murder movie.
Yeah.
Heavenly something.
Heavenly Creatures.
Heavenly Creatures,
Mhm.
right. And he did a behind the scenes for a TV piece about the formation of Weta. And this is after Jurassic Park come out, and there had been a lot of interest, I think, in the public for what CG studios, what effects studios do. And Weta was like a small team. They had like one film scanner, one compositor. They were making miniatures. It's way before Lord of the Rings. And Peter Jackson does this interview talking about like why Weta is important to what he does, and even in the movies, like traditional film movies like Heavenly Creatures, there's a lot of composite and CG work that you don't see, or you don't notice. I'm sure you would notice it now. But he talks about, in the future, we're not going to be filming with film anymore. It's going to be digital, and which a lot of it happened. And Peter Jackson was one of the first directors to really adopt like red cameras and filming Hobbit in 48 FPS with all those red scarlets, I believe. Because he says, we're not going to use film, and everything's going to be stored in digital media. Like, he holds his hands out like this, like CDs this big. And he says that. Well, we're maybe not going to get CDs that big, because that went away. But we might get discs that big. I'm holding about something the size of a quarter, because we have quartz optical storage
The
now.
technology behind this is amazing. The first evidence of this showed up around 2012. Researchers were able to essentially etch on the nanoscale into the composite structure of quartz data up to about 40 megabytes per square inch, which isn't that much. It's about the density of a CD. Well, researchers from Southampton University in the UK redid the experiment, again, writing data into the quartz, but were able to layer it this time. And the distance, this is what's incredible to me, the distance between the layers is 5 microns on top of each other. And they're able to get 360 terabytes onto a single piece of quartz. That's basically, so that quarter size that you're talking about would be able to hold that many terabytes.
360 terabytes. Write once, and that's it. No rewrites.
And it won't fail. It shouldn't fail, because the structure of quartz is really, really stable. So unless you're like doing some ridiculous exposure to like certain types of heat and whatnot,
They would last billions of years and up to incredible temperatures. I remember reading a comic book, like a Bill and Ted comic book, where they went to the future and they talked about having entire music collections in cubes, glass cubes. And I was like, whoa. And obviously, entire like discography, you can put that in an SD card, no problem.
Well, what's next is the
today.
Jedi Holocron.
But that's exactly what we're talking about, archiving, all of human knowledge in cubes or all of a certain media. If write once, no rewriting. That's true archiving. I don't know what the read speeds are.
I think
for this.
we might need to send Frank over to Southampton in the UK to
And
back
have
up all of his
back up your
data
data.
onto a single piece of quartz.
Make sure you delete all your illicit material first, because you can't delete.
Yeah,
it
there's no
afterwards.
read write. So
No read write. You just gotta like burn it to 400 degrees Fahrenheit to melt the quartz. I read this on Gizmodo, and I love the first comment, which was, "Can't wait for the spy movie the inevitable spy movie where it turned out that the data was on the watch face, the crystal, all along. Like the back of, like the secret proprietary spy data. Like at the end, it's like a Rolex watch, and you just pop off the lid, and that's the data. Because that's what Hollywood would do. Rip from the headlines.
Norm's giving his notice here at Tested so he can go work on the new James Bond script.
Oh no.
I just watched Casino Royale the other night.
Rewatched it.
Rewatched
it's
it?
so good. Yeah,
The
rewatched
Daniel
it.
Craig one?
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah. It's amazing as talk about Green Lantern being bad. Same directors.
Really?
Yeah, the director of Casino Royale actually directed GoldenEye.
Oh, I like GoldenEye.
They're very different movies, but they're both James Bond reboot movies. And I think a lot of it had to do with the script, obviously, and the cinematographer he worked with. But then he also went to direct Green Lantern.
Yeah, but maybe he had like a brain trust of producers and studio that was pulling the strings.
Yeah,
I've been on films where like great director, and then it just turns into this train wreck because there's too many cooks in the kitchen telling the director, like making decisions before the director even gets a chance to make a decision.
Right. It happens a lot with first-time directors also, where they get a director who's done an independent film, and as long as they play ball, then they get their measly paycheck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are good paychecks.
Those are good paychecks. All right. Well, we don't have Jeremy on the podcast this week, but I did want to talk a little bit about the
There's some big Apple news.
The Apple rumors and Apple news. We did mention the rumor of the iPhone 5 SE possibly coming out next month. Now, Frank, you're on an iPhone 5.
Yep.
Do you like the size of the iPhone 5? How do you feel about that? The 4-inch screen size.
It's fine. I don't have any problem.
Have you tried using the bigger phones, the 4.7-inch iPhone 6?
Is that the size that yours is?
The 5-inch, 5.5 inch is iPhone 6, the Plus.
Yeah, I've messed with yours and Will's phone in the past, and I mean it doesn't bother me. I don't feel that I'm hampered by this size of a screen, and I also don't feel like I need to run out and spend a bunch of money to go buy.
Then we may have the phone for you.
Well, there's a new phone potentially coming out next month.
As long as it's got a good camera.
And it would supposedly have the camera and all the speed and features, all the internals of the latest iPhone, the 6S, but in the form factor of the iPhone 5.
So it is A9 chip they're going to put in there?
I think that's what they're saying. And you lose the volume for battery because you can't put as big a battery, but because the resolution of the screen.
Yeah, but I have a Mophie battery pack on my phone anyway, so I don't care.
And Apple sells their own battery pack also.
Do they?
They do. They do
with
sell
a
battery
hump in it.
With a hump. Yeah.
What?
There was a big hubbub. They sell like a case, a battery case, except it's you know how the Mophies are rigid?
Yeah.
The new one, the Apple one is flexible silicone, so it's easy to pop off and on, but the battery part is like a hump in the back. It looks like a cancerous hump.
That's silly. This Mophie one's awesome.
Well,
this is like my 15th Mophie one. Because they die every year.
That's why they're not awesome. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I mean, like, how many of those USB battery charger doodles like last more than 2 years of charging and uncharging?
Are really, really crappy.
Yeah, I mean, so I just assume I'm going to buy a new battery case like every other year. Plus, I'm pretty rough with my stuff, so it gets broken pretty fast.
I will say the 5 SE. I think the battery life on it's going to be pretty good, given the improvements they've made in iOS in terms of the battery usage of the software too. I mean, if the battery life on the 6 Plus has been really good, and if those improvements in terms of the software port over, even with the smaller battery, I think it's going to be in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a question about. I'm assuming they're going to use the same screen technology.
That's the question, because we're talking about Apple in 2016 potentially releasing a new phone, a high-end phone, that would not have even HD resolution.
Yeah.
Not even 720p.
But isn't this phone the
no,
good screen?
your phone is not 720p.
What? I've never had any problems watching videos or movies.
And that's Apple's argument. Like, don't worry about resolution. Just worry about what your experience is. And if your experience is good and you're happy with it, don't worry about
I thought that this
numbers.
was a Retina screen on this thing.
Retina is about density, though, not the actual resolution. So you can pack Retina. Can be like a 2-inch. Your Apple Watch is a Retina screen.
I don't have an Apple Watch.
Not your Apple Watch. Jeremy usually sits there. So Jeremy's Apple Watch is a Retina screen. I also have a confession to make. My Apple's screen broke this past week.
Did you
your phone?
drop it?
I dropped it. I don't use a case, and I've said before, cases are for the careless. Guess what? I was careless. It fell out of my pocket, dropped on the floor, cracked the screen, and the
You
first thing I
Apple
did.
Care it?
No, I don't have Apple Care either.
Mm.
First thing I did was figure out, okay, how much would it cost for me to buy a screen to replace it myself? Because I wanted to replace it myself. And so I went to iFixit, looked at the screen replacements. Guess how much it costs? Because with the new one, it has the Force Touch, and you can't just replace the glass. You replace the whole digitizer, the screen. The only thing that doesn't come off is the home button.
So the phone itself is what, $600 right now, right? 650, something in that.
The Plus is like $700.
So my guess is the screen on iFixit maybe like 150, maybe 200.
If it was $200, I'd be happy to buy the screen. So the iPhone 6S, not mine, but or not yours, but Jeremy's, just the screen on iFixit is $325.
Does that include the fingerprint sensor?
No, it doesn't include because
it doesn't include the home button.
Doesn't include the home button, and you actually don't want to replace the home button yourself.
Yeah,
because phones have bricked before in the past if it's not an Apple verified home button. The 6S Plus front screen replacement is $375 plus tax, basically $400 to buy a screen that you can replace yourself.
Is that because Apple's killed off the secondary market by basically requiring people to get fixes at Apple?
I don't think. I think that the qual. I mean, it could be markup. I'm sure if I eBayed it or looked in Alibaba or something and found an inferior quality generic one, maybe that could have worked. But the one they sell, the one that I would trust from iFixit, was just so expensive.
That's ridiculous. That's half the cost of the phone.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
What did you end up doing?
Well, I took it to the Apple store and guess how much it cost for them to replace it?
$375.
$150
What?
on the Plus
So what's going on here?
Cheesy.
for them to replace it for me. It took
So
40 minutes.
this is like
I would have been happy. I have all the tools, happy to replace it. I just don't want to pay 3 times the amount.
That's ridiculous. That's Apple gaming the system a little bit so that you forced to go into the Apple store.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure it's like almost the exact same screen. Now, what I couldn't do at the Apple store was ask them to put, I have the white phone. I wanted them to put the black screen on top of the white. I wanted like an Oreo phone, but they wouldn't do that.
Really? They wouldn't do it? Why?
Jerks.
No, because they won't.
'Cause
Because
it's
that's not what
Apple.
they sell. It's not what they sell. Anyway, the other big Apple news, and this one may not have a direct impact on us today, but it could set a precedent, is that the government has ordered Apple to basically create an exception for one of the phones for the rules so that you can't. So right now,
This is a super serious case.
Yeah. one of the shooters in the San Bernardino shootings had an iPhone, and the
And
police
it's encrypted.
and it's encrypted. And one of the phones, the police have the phones in possession, and what they want to do is unlock it to get
Because they want to see who this person was talking to.
Right. And the way the phones work, if your phone is encrypted and you try too many times, it will auto delete everything on the phone.
Yeah.
And what the court has ordered is ordered Apple to cooperate and create a backdoor just for this phone instance, special firmware, so that the phone won't. They're not asking for the phone to be unlocked, but they ask for the phone that won't brick and won't wipe itself, while the police try to force
It- Yeah, the
Unlock
FBI took Apple to court, and Tim Cook said no. He's
Yeah.
still he's like standing firm on no,
I don't.
that he won't make an exception for this
I don't
case.
I mean,
Because he said if you open up this exception, it opens the door for future exceptions. And functionally, Apple has not created this backdoor, any sort of way to break the encryption.
Yeah.
Because if they said if they were to create it, it would open up the option for this privacy to be violated. And that's one of the things they sell their products on, is that you have this privacy. I don't know if I buy that last line, but everything else up to it. See, he's really staunchly defending this. And how do you feel about it?
I think good for them for defending it. Yeah, I think
I feel the same way, but this is
it's
a really
real.
tough
I mean, this
case.
is. It's not exactly that 24 scenario of like, do we torture for the info? Obviously, we want the police to get as much data as possible to stop these future attacks.
I think if it was that serious, like in a 24 scenario, we wouldn't hear anything about this.
Oh, no.
And there'd be some like secret stuff going on, and nothing would ever. We'd never know
How it
the
went
actual-
down.
Yeah.
The data was found. The crisis was averted.
We would not hear about it. But I
Jack Bauer breaking into Tim Cook's office. Give me the codes. Give me the firmware. God damn it, give me the firmware. Swear to me. Swear to me.
I have to admit, I think his argument is really solid. It's like, we haven't made this. We can't give it to you. Is pretty solid. So kudos to Tim Cook, but it's a tough call.
All right, that's it for the Apple news this week. Hey, a couple more tech things in the news. If you travel a lot, I fly a lot. Sure, I think you fly,
I fly a fair amount.
Do you use GoGo?
I do on certain flights for sure. When I need it to.
You know, the trick to GoGo is not to buy it on
Oh,
the
you
flight.
buy it ahead of time.
You must
Totally.
buy
Super
the
cheap.
code ahead of time because they totally impact the pricing. Like, the pricing is skewed. If you're on
It's like 2 or 3 times more expensive if you buy it on the plane.
Yeah. And I buy a lot of I don't need to buy the full flight thing if I'm flying on a long trip and, you know, San Francisco to Seattle is 2 hours or something, right? And I only buy 30 minutes because I know I can take a nap during takeoff, no problem. My brain automatically shuts off the moment the turbines turn on. I never hear the end of the Virgin America song, the safety song. So I know I got the first 20 to 30 minutes of that trip covered. I know the last 20 minutes when they say we're getting ready to land, internet gets turned off anyway, and you don't get internet then. And I know I can stand about 20 minutes without internet, without going crazy, stir crazy. That's my limit.
So, fans, next time you see Norman at airport, he can
20
stand about 20 minutes of your time.
20 minutes. 21 minutes, that's when I start getting the shakes. So all I know is that if I buy about 30 minutes, and I can get away with fake internet too, intranet. On airplane intranet, just pushing the buttons gives me the kick, gives me the fix. I'm pushing something and something's happening. That's enough for me. So
You got problems.
all I need is about
What do we need to do to have an intervention?
We need to get all of his family together and sit him down.
no.
Okay,
and
let's
As
start
long
the-
as
start
long
the
as I have
planning.
as long as I got 20
tie his hands up.
some internet connection, as long as I can swipe down and refresh. So all I need is about 30 minutes on a 2.5 hour flight of internet access, and so you pay $5 for that. I'm totally happy to pay that for 30 minutes of internet on a flying chair, a chair in the sky. That's magic. I'm totally happy for it. But GoGo may be going down.
Yeah, American Airlines sued them yesterday because they said their service stinks, basically, and that competitors can offer better speeds for their clients. And so GoGo stock dropped 25% on the news. It just got crushed. And so GoGo, I think, has a 30 days or 45 days to respond to this. Otherwise, they're sort of out as the contract provider. I mean, Wi-Fi internet speeds stink, but I'm loath to complain about them so much, given what is happening. I'm just reminded of that Louis C.K. on Conan thing, where it's you're in an aluminum tube flying through the air, but the internet's not fast enough for you up there.
Exactly.
It's something, and yes, I completely agree. A chair in the sky is magical. Internet, while on a chair in the sky, doubly magical. But GoGo shouldn't rest on its laurels, and they haven't been. Last year they announced they've been upgrading the way it's delivering the internet, putting more upgraded antennas.
So expensive.
It is to build that infrastructure. Absolutely, the way it works is you have these antennas on the bottom of the planes, and as you're flying over the U.S., they have satellites directionally over the flight, underneath the flight paths that connect the data. That's why you can't do video streaming in addition to the high bandwidth, but they seamlessly pass from beacon to beacon and get you internet.
Seamless is a little bit strong, but yes.
Yeah, enough that you can browse, right,
Yeah.
and do instant messaging. And before, the original solution was about 3 megabits shared. Right now, it's about 10 megabits with the new one, and they're, I think it could get better. But again, they got to buy the land. They got to go through all the regulatory actions within all the territories they're working on terrestrial land, and then they have to get the airplanes to also upgrade and build it in. So it's expensive, and I think a lot like Uber and Lyft and these convenience services, we underpay for it. We take a lot of the stuff, and especially delivery, like UPS and FedEx, we underpay.
Amazon Prime does.
And Amazon Prime, we pay so that the companies can break even or work at a loss, but so they can build market share and they can work at scale. But what these, if we divide up what these services actually cost to operate, internet on a plane should cost a lot more than $5 for 30 minutes. I'm happy to pay $5 for 30 minutes, but
When is Wi-Fi in a hotel going to get cheaper? That's what I want to know.
that's the biggest scam
I
of
have
the
no
21st
idea. That
century.
doesn't make any sense to me.
The nicer the hotel, the more expensive the internet.
It's horseshit.
And the worse speeds you get.
Yeah.
And the worst speeds because they can afford to pay the providers to segment it out. So maybe you get the free, check your email once a day internet, but if you want anything resembling productivity, you got to pay the $20 plus
And
whatever convenience charge and resort charge.
Oh,
And you
I hate
guys
it.
go to cons too, where every nerd is trying to get on, so it's even slower.
Yeah.
God, the nicest thing was when we used to go to stay at the Planet Hollywood PH Towers, which is now there used to be the Westgate Towers, but now they're like the Hilton whatever building at for CES. No one stayed there because it wasn't like a
It was
well-known
off
hotel.
strip, yeah.
It was kind of in the back of the Miracle Mile.
Yeah.
It was more timeshares. It was a timeshare facility, not a real hotel. But we got the best internet there. Like we got like 20 up, 50 down, and that's when we were able to do live streams
Wow.
in our suite. Yeah, I can't do that now. Yeah, now you pay $20, $22 plus resort fee a night for maybe 5 megabits down, 1 meg up.
Unreliable too.
Yeah, unreliable. All right. Something that hopefully isn't unreliable, but definitely is a gimmick is coming later this year. We're going to get a live episode of The Simpsons.
Wait, what?
A what?
A live animated episode of The Simpsons. Now,
That's really going to be taxing on those animators' hands.
there's the joke. Simpsons did it. Made the joke already. Yeah. Do you remember the episode
I
where
know, that's why I quoted.
where I'm asking Frank. Remember the episode in The Simpsons
Oh.
where was it Homer does Poochie?
Yes, they're visiting the animation studios for Poochie, I think.
Poochie the dog, and while he's doing the voice acting as well, how dude, we haven't done animations live in a long time. It really is a strain on animators' wrists. Well, Fox is this year doing a live episode of The Simpsons, a segment which will be live, and what they're going to do is they're going to Waldo Dan Castanella, and so he can voice act, and his motions will get mapped to a 2D version of Homer, which will move, and he'll answer questions live.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love I'm really interested in this motion capture that's going to go from 3D to 2D. Because I don't think I've seen something like that. You usually see 3D to 3D because why would you capture motion capture
Right.
down to 2D? But so I think that sort of
Well, I mean,
interface
it's-
is really interesting.
It's just like those the cartoons that used to. Who's the guy that did the cartoons where everything was rotoscoped?
Oh,
Um,
what is the name of that?
Yeah, I mean that's
Yeah.
that's essentially like super like lo-fi capturing onto into a 2D thing. So
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, like
I,
the Dragon Slayer video game. Remember that? That was
right,
all.
right, but that was all pre-animated before.
I know it's not live, but I mean it was still rotoscoped off of performances.
Yes, totally. There are
Which-
references. You're
yeah.
talking about like the AHA thing, and yeah.
Yeah. But
And so I don't think
Homer
they're doing
doesn't
they're
have-
doing not doing reference capture for Dan Castanella. I think what they're doing is they're gonna have the animators pre-animate like burps and classic Homer
Yeah,
animations.
Homer doesn't have that many degrees of freedom, let's just call it.
yeah,
But what I hope they'll do is like blinks, eye blinks, head movement, turns, and let him really do a performance because that could be something actually groundbreaking.
It's all about the mouth.
Yeah, and it doesn't, like, having it live is definitely the gimmicky part of it. But if the technology's there, then you could do table reads, and you can have the actors actually interacting with each other, and have those things actually, captured, which they don't do in 2D. This again, it's lo-fi. It's the animations aren't as varied, but simplify and build that into the workflow to make a more maybe interactive Simpsons.
Well, I mean, the whole point of this is that you can tweet questions to Homer, and so Dan will be answering them live. You hashtag Homer Live between May 1st and May 4th. I don't know how well this will work. I've for somebody that was a Simpsons trivia champion for multiple years, I've fallen off
Wow.
the wagon. I haven't really watched The Simpsons in a couple years.
What's your favorite bit of Simpsons trivia?
Here's your doll. Here's your problem. This doll's set on evil. That's my favorite Simpsons moment ever. It's from like an early Treehouse of
Oh,
Horror
yes.
where Krusty doll is evil,
Yeah.
and like the tech comes in and he's like,
Oh,
he
here's your
open
doll,
lifts
and
up.
And then the Krusty doll becomes a slave at the end.
Yeah.
He delivers all the food.
Oh.
It's a Gremlins thing where Homer goes to the shop and buys a Krusty doll from the old, from the
Froyo Antiques shop.
Wow, that's
Wow.
deep.
Oh, deep cuts are coming if we
that-
keep going down this route.
Is that the same Simpsons Treehouse of Horror episode where you had the hair, where Homer gets a luxurious new head of hair from Snake?
Oh no, it's not. It's not. But
love
Monkey
that one
Paw
too.
is that episode.
Oh, the fingers, he gets the wishes? Yeah.
Monkey Paw.
These are good Simpsons episodes.
So hopefully it's a revitalization. But I don't
What were
think
the
it's gonna
what were
be.
the golden seasons of Simpsons?
For me, it was. So like Simpsons was really formative for me. So I'm always gonna have a fondness for the super early seasons, even though they weren't that good. I think it's really about like I would say like 6 to 12, somewhere in that region is where it really hit home for me.
What season is it on now?
22,
I think
23, something like that. It's in.
I
want to
say like season 9 is like season 10 is maybe the last one I actually watch regularly.
Wow.
I don't think I've watched Simpsons regularly in the past 10 years. I mean, there was a phase, maybe up to the movies, right? The movies, which was about 10 years ago now. The Simpsons movie was like the last time I watched Simpsons. Like that was the apex of it. I wasn't happy with that. Loved the movie, but there was a era in that early teen Simpsons where they just became Homer episodes. They were very self-aware of that formula too. They had the A plot in the beginning, and then they would just go away. We're done with you now, raccoon, right? And then it would be Homer does something stupid, and they'd be too focused on Homer. I didn't like that. I love the Bart and Lisa centric episodes. Very classic, wholesome. Old school Simpsons. Lisa plays hockey. Bart goes. Oh my god! I think my favorite Simpsons episode might be Bart going to the smart school. The smart
Really?
kid school. I love that episode.
I still
What's a
play
paradox?
That.
Damn if you do, damn if you don't. I guess that is a paradox. Frank, you're saying something?
I still play that Simpsons game on my iPhone that tapped out.
Oh,
that's a
really?
I
really
play that
fun one.
occasionally. Yeah,
That
I
is
play that
the-
one and the Family Guy one.
That is the worst form of the freemium. Like,
Oh, I won't pay a single penny to any of these things. But like when I'm sitting on an airplane, well, no, those you
Yeah.
can't do it on an airplane because they have to connect. When I'm
Oh,
sitting
yeah,
in the
you need
airport waiting
Wi-Fi,
to get
that's
on the
fine.
airplane, like killing time. Those are good killing time games.
There's some good actual Simpsons video games. Hit and Run is a racing game, which had a fully 3D rendered, mapped out Springfield, and you drove around. It's kind of like GTA a little bit, but in Simpsons. Love that. I think EA did the Simpsons game, which I didn't play, but that was more higher fidelity.
I had a Simpsons
higher
game on my
quality.
Game Boy that was horrible.
I still remember the arcade one where like
Oh,
Marge would
yes.
swing the vacuum cleaner.
Oh yeah, that was good.
Yes.
That
That
was,
was
it
a
was
good game.
It felt like it was the same game as the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles
It
game.
was
Yeah.
pretty much exactly
Yeah.
the same.
Yeah, just with different.
Even like
different
the health
overlays.
bars at the top.
Yeah.
The same thing. But I love the animation sequences. in both those games at the end of the levels, like Mr. Burns taking the baby, stealing Maggie away.
Yeah.
You always play. Everyone remembers the first 3 levels of those games.
Because that's as far as you can get on
That's-
like 1 or 2 quarters.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. If you have $1, that's all you can get, and then pizza breaks over, and
Yep.
gotta go home.
Well, here's hoping the projection mapping brings back some interest to Simpsons.
Ooh,
Speaking of projection mapping,
that was.
I was trying
I give it a 2 out of 5. Let me do this. I don't spend my weekends. Simpsons airs on Sunday nights. Is that what still airs on? But this past weekend, I didn't watch Simpsons. I watched the Grammys.
Oh damn, that is definitely 4 out of 5.
Did you guys watch the Grammys?
Now,
Yeah, the Grammys were all right. I really want to see Hamilton. I was in New York last October, and we had the opportunity to see Hamilton, and we didn't do it. I made
What's
a
that?
mistake. It's a musical about Alexander Hamilton, killed by A. Burr,
Yep.
the famous milk commercial.
Nice.
The guy on the $10 bill.
I know who the. No, I
But
just-
it's
I
It's
don't-
it's set to like sort of a hip hop kind of world of music.
wait,
So
a
it's
hip hop about a.
about a founding father.
it sounds terrible.
It's not for
The
Frank.
mu-
It's not for Frank. Maybe we know it's not for Frank. I really want to see it. It was performed on the Grammys, the opening scene, and it was beautifully performed and filmed live from New York. But the Grammys, which are in LA, also had a performance from Lady Gaga, a tribute to David Bowie. And, a lot of people said that the performance was, I would say it was okay. It wasn't like, I think maybe Bowie the icon that he was maybe deserved a little bit better of a performance and
I
song
think people
selection.
are always going to have a problem because it's Lady Gaga, who a lot of people consider like a low rent version of David Bowie.
Right. I mean, obviously, I think she was the right person to do it.
Yeah.
But her tribute opened with this incredible projection map sequence, and I don't know how long it took for obviously less than a month for them to turn this around, this whole bit. But she sang Space Oddity with her camera on her face, and her makeup was projected on her face with animations like spider crawling around.
The lightning bolt comes down. It's beautiful. So Frank and I were watching this before we started, and what we were wondering, so you can see like her makeup has these kind of rhinestoney kind of things.
Right.
Were they using that as the actual
Tracking
mapping
markers.
as tracking markers?
I think yes, because
I would guess yes. That didn't
I mean,
happen.
they're so evenly spaced and so perfect, and there seemed to be some on her ears too.
and I think due to that, the tracking was imperfect.
Mm.
Like real good projection mapping has a 3D model of the person's face, and you have, when you create a video game character, the points that matter are the end points of the eyes, and also the end points of your lips and your nose. Like those matter so much, and that gives you a lot of facial animation for that. So she had some inconsistencies in the mapping between her
It
eyes
still
and her
looked
lips.
pretty good. I mean, it lost a little bit of focus when she started to perform a little bit, and like I think she's used to like being able to move her face some, and I think she had to hold pretty still for it to work. But it was still pretty cool.
I got to imagine that they did that under a time crunch and with not enough budget to actually do it
Yeah.
the right way. So like looking at it from the production side, like we could sit here and nitpick and be like, oh, it was this, it was
Totally.
that. It's like it was probably dudes that were just like way under. They're like, we need this for tomorrow for Lady Gaga. We don't know what it's going to look like or what it's going to be, and it's got like. I'm sure that was the case on any little discrepancies.
Yeah, right. And I think they were definitely tuning it to the last minute. Obviously, Intel played a big part in it and paid to have a lot of this done because they were touting the technology, and she's a partnership with Intel.
Wait, Lady Gaga's a partner with Intel?
Yeah, powered by Intel. Like she did a whole robot in the performance. They had her keyboard was like a robot keyboard, had dancing legs, and so it moved, and that was all designed in CAD and Intel. I watched it on my TV, and my TV's dying. I have a 2010 Samsung Plasma 63-inch.
Oh, that's early for it to die. Only 5 years.
It's actually died once before, and I had to under warranty replace it. But I get the thing with plasma is where white, when the screen is white, I get like purple, a lot of purple haze and fringe around it, and the TV has kind of shut itself off from time to time by itself. So I feel like 2016 might be a time for a TV quest. When's the last time you guys bought TVs?
2 years ago, 2012. I have a 55-inch plasma right now, or 2013, and I love buying TVs. My wife does not like me buying TVs, so I love the TV hunt, especially if we can go to stores and look at them, like on Black Friday.
Oh yeah, you love Black Friday. It's your jam.
It's my jam.
Black Friday
But
is your
isn't
jam.
the best time to buy TVs right around the Super Bowl? That's when the
It's a
prices
little
are the best?
after the Super Bowl because you get some low rent deals.
The best time to buy last year's TVs is after Super Bowl, because after CES is in January, a lot of the products are announced then. Super Bowl's in late January, early February, and then in spring is when a lot of those TVs, the new models, come out. Now, on Woot, I was so tempted last night.
You can't buy a Woot. It's
I
all
know.
refurb.
It is refurb, and there's only 90-day warranty, but Woot had an LG 4K 65-inch TV, 2 inches bigger than my current one, 4K LG, LED backlit, refurb, last year's model, reviewed quite well, retails for $1,800, and Woot had it for $1,000.
That's pretty good.
That's a great price.
refurb is still hard.
So I was chatting with
on
a,
TV.
I know, and the 90 days definitely isn't enough. 6 months, enough for a warranty. It's 90 days, not enough. I was chatting with Devindra over from Engadget about, he was one who alerted me about the deal, and it was tempting, and we got into a discussion online about, if you're going to buy a TV, would you buy a 4K TV now? And I've been thinking about TVs for a long time, new TV for a relatively long time, past 6 months or so. Frank, I know you use a projector.
Well, in my living room, I have a projector. In the bedroom, I have a Sony Smart TV. But I'm so nearsighted. Like it's irrelevant to me. Like what resolution or blah blah blah. Like unless I put my glasses on when I'm watching TV, it's all a little bit fuzzy anyway, so I don't care.
Right. And obviously, we talked about don't buy 4K now because there's no 4K content. Only in March are we starting to get the dedicated 4K Blu-ray players. The standard just came out for streaming. Netflix 4K, the original stuff, yes. New House of Cards, that will be in 4K, but you need to have the right player.
But that's not a
HDCP
show
2.2.
you necessarily
You don't
want.
need
Or
that.
or you can get the red 6K laser projector.
No, I'm not going to spend $20,000 on a projector. Like $1,000 is a right amount of money to spend for a new TV system if you're going to have it for 5 years.
Yeah, my projector's starting to go. It's an old 720 projector, and it doesn't have a real high lumens.
Right.
And so I'm casually shopping around to find my next projector.
And Joey just got a projector. He got the one that the Wirecutter
he loves
recommended,
it,
and
too.
he loves it. 10 I've watched movies on it. He got a nice screen for it, 100-inch screen, looks massive.
I think that's getting a nice screen was the big touch there.
But the problem I have with the projector is that I flip on the TV. I have it on the background a lot, and the
Yeah.
projector isn't the kind of
That's
thing
not
that
good.
I want to have leaving on or flip on and off just to watch. To channel flip. Projector is what I think of when I want to watch. I know I'm going to watch Netflix or a movie.
Totally.
Right,
That's
that's-
why I don't have a projector. Same reason.
Yeah, but Mortal Kombat X on the projector, Norm.
And games.
Right?
Games are great. Like when you know exactly what the content is, when you're loading something up specifically for a display, a projector is wonderful. If
Star
I'm just-
Wars Battlefront, I've been killing it on the projector.
If I'm just doing MSNBC, or I'm just watching even sports or something that's streaming over at low bit rate, 1080 or 720, projector is kind of overkill for that.
MSNBC, there's a strong liberal bias on this show. I didn't realize.
What?
The MSNBC.
Well,
Yeah.
Oh, I don't
CNN
watch the
CNN's
news. It's all
garbage.
silly.
They're all garbage. But yeah,
yeah.
I feel I like this. I like going on a hunt. I like this hunt.
Well, help me hunt for a new projector. I want to
Sure,
find.
let's do it.
Yeah, I mean,
Well-
Joey and I chatted a bunch before
Mhm.
he got his.
Yeah.
And I said, I would go to Wirecutter if I'm a dummy. Like, just go to Wirecutter, pick whatever that
That's
stuff
not a
is.
dummy
That's
move.
not-
That's
yeah.
a smart move.
Well, I mean, that's me not. I'm not educated enough in all the little funny things that I should be looking for, so I would go to that. But if you want to help me, Kishore,
I will totally help you. You don't have to put your arm on me. for
no,
me
but I
help
want to
you.
touch you.
Well, in the discussion I had on Twitter, while the price on this 4K refurb TV was appealing at $1,000, bigger TV, 65-inch, massive, right? Really nice. I ended up not getting it, one, because it sold out, and two, I really don't know if I need the 4K TV. And what's more exciting, people were talking about, and I'm unconvinced of this because I haven't had a lot of experience looking at the content on this, is HDR TVs this year. That's the thing
Oh,
where the
interesting.
quality, where dynamic range, having more dynamic range, more stops of light on the TV and what it can display actually may matter for low light shows. Obviously, the content will have to be formatted for that stuff, but I'm really that could be a 4K HDR TV, could be something that I want to get. Again,
You are in a tweener moment right now because of where 4K content is.
Yeah.
If you're next year, you would buy the 4K TV,
Right.
But you also have to buy on a 5-6 year horizon.
Mhm.
So I think that's a really tough place.
And it sucks that the technology that, out of all the things, OLED's never going to get that size cheap soon. 4K, it's been 3 years of 4K. And this year, next year still feels like the right time for content. HDR is too new of a technology to adopt now, with it not being refined and also with the price not being unreasonable. I'm glad curved TVs are gone.
oh God, those
Right.
are the worst.
I mean, they're still sure you can still find them, but I'm glad as a fad they're gone. Like I hope HDR. Quantum dots was last year. Quantum dots just meant that you got IPS quality on a LED. Closer to OLED, but we'll see if HDR actually matters. I would love to visit the store and see a properly calibrated TV and not just floor calibrated,
Yeah,
because there's a difference.
it'd be
Yeah, floor
interesting.
calibrated is always goofy because it's like at a higher refresh rate and it always looks like garbage.
I'd also be interested because you've had a plasma for you to actually look at some energy usage too. And think about that when you're buying your next TV. It's not as big of a factor as what we're talking about with sort of the resolution and whatnot, but it'll be interesting.
What you don't want to do is buy a TV and have it only last for 2 years.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, it's a really really
Not
tough
for
call.
like in this range of size and where you want to put it. This is your living room TV.
Right. Does anyone out there have both a projector and like an LCD, a flat screen in their living room, and have the projector come down over it? I'd like to know. Visit.
I feel like Zeke,
Visit.
I feel like Zeke does
Invite
that in
me
his
over.
house. Our buddy Zeke that works for Penn and Teller. I feel that he has a regular TV and also his projector in his.
For movie nights or for channel flipping nights?
I don't know. I vaguely remember last time I was at his place, like before he bought his house, but in his last apartment, he had them both in the same. I don't know.
All right. Well, we have our next segment coming up, and it is Kishore's A Moment.
Oh. How did you know?
I just assumed there was going to be a segue song.
Yeah, but you got that rock song. We're gonna do it a little differently.
Wait, hold on.
Okay.
That intro music was created by Christopher Shaw. I can't pronounce his last name. Christopher with 2 F's. Christopher. He made this music for A Moment of Science. I'm not still sold on it. I want to try them out. I'm not going to play the other ones. We'll play a new one every week until we find one we like. How about that?
All right. You're going to come to people's house and try out the songs.
I still want. Please send us music intros for A Moment of Science. Kishore has volunteered to give you sound bites.
Oh yes, just not live on the podcast. Oh, I'll give you some.
Give me 2 versions of. And now it's time for A Moment of Science.
Now it's time for A Moment of Science.
Give me just A Moment of Science.
A Moment of Science.
There we go. Okay, take those sound clips, you guys, and let's get a
Tried
short
to channel my Don Pardo there a little bit.
10 to 15 second musical
There's
intro.
a little bit of Sulu going on.
Yeah, I know. That's the best I could do. All right. We're going to do things a little bit differently. You remember Choose Your Own Adventure books?
I love those.
Hell yeah.
I didn't have
Okay.
enough fingers to place all the pats.
All right. So Frank's our guest, so he gets the first choice. So I want you to either choose Cake, Drill Baby Drill, or the Dark Web.
Well, I'm on a diet, so I'm not going to choose cake. I'll choose the dark web because I don't know anything about it.
Dark Web. This is one of my favorite things. So a couple years ago, a researcher started a real pirate version of open access movement. So in science, there's a lot of scientific papers that are published by for-profit companies that erect paywalls for you to read them. And there's a huge movement afoot to make everything open access so you can just access these papers directly. Well, they started basically the Pirate Bay for scientific papers.
Yeah, this is great.
It was super great if you believe in open access, which you should on some level. But it was taken down. Well, it's reemerged recently, and the same person has put it together, and now it exists on the dark web. And there is basically millions of papers on this site that you can access now. The site is called Sci-Hub. You can go to sci-hub.org. Well, that was the initial site, but you can access all of these papers now. I think it's a great story. I think there's going to be some legal fights coming this way, but I think what's hilarious is how it's been working so far. Is so many researchers hit paywalls because their universities are subscribing to them, and so they'll tweet out Icahn has PDF to other scientist colleagues to send them the PDF version of the paper. So this is a different solution to that. So I'm excited to see where this goes and for this work to continue, because undermining the ridiculous pay for access system is a great.
Can you
step forward.
explain why that system exists and how it works for some people who don't know, who never have searched for it? Because if you Google, you find abstracts all the time, but what is that ecosystem?
So there's a really hard question in there. I mean, why it exists is a very difficult question. It's sort of the structure is based off of history, but basically a lot of publishing companies have come forward, and over hundreds of years, a lot of these journals are very, very old, and you basically submit your paper there. You goes through a review process that the journal pays for. They have an editor that they pay for. They host it. They used to actually publish hard copies of these journals, so there was hard costs associated with it. And then you'd have to subscribe to the journal to have access to it. And most of the way that this was done is that libraries would subscribe to physical journals. Over the past few years, the fees, especially over the last 15 to 20 years, have really risen dramatically for access to that content. And alternatives have emerged, particularly alternatives to this idea that you have to pay to access the content. So now one of the more famous one is called PLOS, the Public Library of Science, which is based here in San Francisco, where the author pays upon publishing for it, and then it's freely available. And part of open access has a lot of different components to it, but then it's sort of indexable, searchable, accessible, especially when the research was funded by government organizations. And so that sort of willingness to share the information, I think, is a really hallmark of open access. There's a lot more detail I can go about that, but there's been a history of for-profit companies for this, and they have a good reason for existing for-profit because they pay for things like an editor and review process, which does take money.
It just is maybe overpriced, and maybe more than just the abstract should be shared.
It's also not consistent with how other industries operate, particularly coding right now.
Well, I heard that. I feel like I heard something on NPR where there's a big discussion about having research data open, especially in the medical field, and it's hard to cross-reference other people's research because everybody's so secretive or all this kind of stuff. I mean, it shouldn't.
The resiliency to get scooped is a big issue. This is particularly interest, especially with stuff like the Zika virus, where quick sharing of information is going to be really important to help identify and contain the virus in terms of strategies at work. So there is a big push, especially with sort of emergent issues, to share that information more readily. There's also a big call for for sharing of failures and null data to come out.
Yeah, aren't people reluctant to share their failures because they don't want to?
Very much so.
Yeah, I think that in things like medical research or even technological research, like failures are what we grow on. Like even for an artist or like what I do, it's because I screw up a lot of stuff that I've learned how to do things the right way.
It has to be carefully thought through because a journal of failures isn't the most attractive thing in the world, but I think there's ways to curate that would...
Maybe there could be like an anonymous failure log.
I think open data is actually the real key here. If we can have access to data, we can talk about reproducibility, the trust and integrity that data goes up, and also that sort of failure sharing can go on too. All right, Norm, it's your chance to choose your own adventure. Drill, baby, drill, or cake?
Cake.
So last week, the biggest science news was the detection of gravitational waves, which we are you chirping for LIGO? Do you know what that is?
What?
So we detected a gravitational wave.
Does it sound like the C?
So it goes from a low end note to a middle C. It was actually the sound of the gravitational wave. So he's doing the LIGO chirp right there.
Oh, the
I
sound
didn't know
of
that's what it was called.
sound of two black holes colliding into each other.
I listened to something on like I Fucking Love Science, and had a little video with a guy explaining it and played the sound.
Yeah, the Norm sound is a little bit off, but we'll forgive him.
Yeah, it's quite as powerful as two black holes colliding a billion years ago.
Not yet.
Not yet.
But what I love about this is there was a lot of leaks and speculation this was happening. Last week on the podcast, we talked about it before it was officially released. But there was a big, strict embargo. Embargo, something you're really familiar with here at Tested, Norm. Well, the embargo got broken on this story in a really interesting way. A member of the team that worked on gravitational waves ordered a sheet cake that said, "Congratulations on your detection of gravitational waves," and then tweeted out a picture of that cake before the embargo lifted.
Oh my goodness.
So that's how official news that gravitational waves have been detected.
Now, does this cake make cakefail.com?
No, it wasn't that bad, but it was not the greatest thing. Here's the funnier story. This is the second time she's broken embargo with a cake.
Really?
Tweeting
Really love cakes.
tweeting
Science.
a picture of a cake.
You know, that's
Good way to go.
roll with it, I say. And just
Embargoes are stupid just
No,
to
no,
begin
No,
with.
they're not. Well,
science embargoes.
oh, science embargo.
Yeah.
Science embargoes because they want to get the most press and they want to make sure that all the important outlets have time to get their pre-briefing, get all the questions out of the way, and get the right knowledge out there. I get that part. I think this person who broke the embargo should roll with it and just start a blog or a video series,
A Tumblr.
a Tumblr announcing science news or talking about science in cake form.
Do you have a picture of the cakes there, Kishore?
I'll put up a picture of the cake.
That's what Frank wants.
Yeah,
Wants
I
to do
want to see what
delicious
this cake looks like.
I'm
trying
diet
to
broke it.
Yeah, I'm trying to avoid this kind of stuff, but I'm curious about the cake. I like cake.
You like cake? It was sheet cake. It felt very like I ordered this from a big box grocery store.
There, I mean, if you we talked about it briefly.
like
Baskin
coming
Robbins ice cream cake.
Oh, where's the picture? It's not
Kishore
coming up.
talked about this news last week, gravitational wave news, but really, New Yorker and New York Times both did these amazing pieces explaining how the detection happened, what the detector, the building of the detector, why it was such a surprise that it was detected so soon.
We'll share a link to the picture of the cake. It's not the
awesome.
best.
It's awesome.
The New York Times piece I thought was the best because it showed the history. Actually, last week on KQED Forum, which is a local NPR affiliate, they had the lead from the project on. Get this. This is the craziest story I heard about it, is that they obviously have to calibrate and test the detectors all the time so they don't have false positives. They had a maintenance crew out that night that they actually detected it, that was working on it, and basically they do it in off hours, like in the middle of the night and stuff. And they got tired and went home about an hour and a half before the detection actually happened. And so had they just kept going, we wouldn't have made the detection.
Wow.
Because we're talking about lasers that shift in how small is
Is
that
it like
shift?
quantum level shifting?
Yeah, no, it's not quantum level shifting, but it's like on the nano level.
On the nano level, like
I think the total
of
microns was the total shift. But
Well,
I think
let me
they're
ask
measuring
you this: is it good or bad that I got my news from this from I Fucking Love Science and not from the two articles you guys were talking about? Or?
So, like, there's a lot of people that don't like IFLS because it's, like, sort of sensational. I don't really feel exactly that way. It's just the Times had, like, this nice infographic animation of the black holes colliding and had some of the history of the work, which is what you don't get that from IFLS. It was just like a,
So
kind
the
of
question
project.
really is, once you saw that IFLS post, that encouraged you to seek out more information.
Well, I didn't feel that I needed to seek out more about this because it was like a little bit above me. But there are some things that do pop up on there that I start down a rabbit hole
Then
on.
there you go. I think that's to serve its purpose.
Yeah, that's exactly what IFLS is for. It's about sharing. So I think it's great that you subscribe to it.
All right, the last bit.
Drill, baby, drill.
Drill, baby, drill for 400.
So if you send a rover to Mars, like if you recall from Test of the Show, Bobek Ferdowsi was talking about Curiosity on Mars and how they drive it around. Well, one of Curiosity's key components is that it drills rocks on Mars. And you could just step back and say, like, oh, I wonder how that drill works. How do they practice? Well, they practice by assembling a rock field in Southern California and taking a rover out and drilling into it.
Yeah,
and
the
they have all different
Mars
kinds
Yard.
of rock. You know about this place?
The Mars Yard?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's over at JPL.
Yeah. This is great. And they actually have a Nadia Drake in National Geographic visited the Mars Yard and went to the lockers where they keep all different kinds of rock and showed it did this really great detailed story about the rock room and how they select different types of rock, how they drill, how they analyze it, all in preparation for the drill being ready to go on Mars.
So they simulate the rock as if it's Martian soil.
Correct. So they have lots of different types of rock types based off spectrometer data on what they're expecting to see on Mars. And so they had lots of different types. Have you been to this place?
I haven't been to the Mars Yard, but I've been to JPL.
I haven't been to the Mars Yard. I'm really, really curious.
Let's go.
Maybe we can talk Bobek into taking us into the
He's
rock
offered.
room. Into the rock
Well,
room?
no, he's offered just a basic tour of JPL.
Rock room. That's where I want to go. And I have one bonus story for you. I'm calling it Pirate Ninjas really quickly.
All right.
You guys have
Is
heard
this
of
another Martian reference?
yeah, of course. I like that movie. You remember the name Andrew Wakefield? He's a name that should live in infamy. He published the study that linked vaccines to autism development that was widely discredited. He lost his medical license afterwards. He's considered one of the most damaging doctors in the history of modern medicine.
And who paid for that study?
I don't remember. It was published in the Lancet, but I don't remember who paid for it.
That's who we should be pointing fingers at.
Well, what happens when you sort of fall down this hole of conspiracy theory?
You just get stronger in your convictions.
He has gotten very strong in his convictions, and now he's gotten together with a whole bunch of other conspiracy theorists, and they go on a cruise.
Oh.
They have a conspiracy
now,
cruise.
it's like the other cruises and music cruises and fan cruises.
Yeah, like the
where
Jonathan Colton cruise.
They
and
only
like,
take a part of the cruise ship.
yes.
So is their goal at the end of the cruise to infect the entirety of the ship with their beliefs? If they come on board with 100 members of the party and leave with 110, is that the success?
I don't know what success is, but
Do they have chemtrail viewing parties?
No, they're out over the ocean. Nobody's spreading chemtrails in the middle of nowhere.
I will
Except
say
over them all the time directly.
I will say, Wired did an article about this where they had they interviewed a journalist that was on board that live blogged the entire experience. Well, not live blog, but just blogged the entire experience.
Where did you get internet access? Conspiracy on a cruise ship.
You can go to violentmetaphors.com and read the blog post.
Violent.
Yeah, and it's. I think it was the most hilarious thing I read all week about what it was like and how this person was really trying to just document it and then like lost control by day 6 and was like, I'm going to have to argue with somebody about how nuts this is.
I got to read this blog.
Are there any 12-foot grays that visit on the? Are there any on the
I don't think I'm making this a vacation destination for me in future years.
I think we need to go
Now,
undercover and check it out.
what if there are
This is interesting.
conflicting conspiracy theories about the same topic? And you have like a part within the conspiracy cruise, a faction that believes that one party was responsible for 9/11 and another that thinks another one. Like, are there rumbles?
Yeah, there's got to be some kind
Conspiracy
of like
rumbles?
there's
How do
like
they settle it?
That's a very good question.
Conspiracy theory fight
over
club.
Yeah.
on international waters, anything goes.
Yeah.
Well,
All
that's
right.
it for the moment of science this week.
Hey, I want to thank the sponsor of this week's episode of This Is Only a Test, which is Squarespace. You guys know about Squarespace. Building a website can be tough, and even if you know your way around coding, coding, it's just tough. Creating something that looks good and works well is a time-consuming affair. Whether it's for a business site, a portfolio, a restaurant, or whatever else, in this day and age, you probably need a website anyway. Well, lucky for us, Squarespace makes it easy to build beautiful websites without breaking a sweat. Squarespace provides simple, powerful, and beautiful websites that look professionally designed regardless of your skill level, and no coding required. That's my favorite part. Not only does Squarespace provide you with intuitive and easy-to-use tools to create your website with, Squarespace also has state-of-the-art technology powering your site to ensure both security and stability. And you can trust in Squarespace for your website needs when millions of people and some of the most respected brands in the world trust in them too. The first website I built, again, GeoCities. If you can find that website, no prize for you. It was Death Frantic's Quake site. Go find it. I didn't build it with Squarespace. It looked terrible, and I used Front Page, and it was the worst. Frank, what was your first website? What did you make it with?
I don't know. I don't really.
Did you make websites when you were young?
No, not really. No, I build mine now just because web builders are
Yeah.
flaky, but no, I don't.
You didn't have a GeoCities,
No,
special effects horror fan site.
no.
Kishore, did you have a
Oh, sure.
science fan site?
It wasn't science. I had one. I think if you look for my earliest internet posts, I had a Magic the Gathering cards.
That's awesome.
Yeah, don't
Revised, revised. Well,
I can't remember what year it was, so I can't.
oh. Well, seriously, you can't beat the ease and simplicity of Squarespace. They also give you 24/7 online support and a beautiful website. So what are you waiting for? Start a trial with no credit card required and start building your website today. And when you decide to sign up, please use the offer code TEST, like the name of this podcast, TEST, to get 10% off your first purchase and show your support for This Is Only a Test. We thank Squarespace and their support of This Is Only a Test. Squarespace, you should.
The VR Minute. Virtual reality this week.
Hey, it's time for the VR Minute, our next segment on This Is Only a Test. It's the first time you heard that, Frank? Do you
Yeah,
want to hear the other one?
yeah.
here. I like that one a lot. Here's the other one. Let's play it anyway. You get double dose of intros.
Yeah.
Virtual reality this week.
I think Frank likes number one.
I like number one.
I feel like the second one's more appropriate for this week.
I like number one.
Anyway, not that much VR news going on. Talk about Jeremy isn't here, but there is a rumor that PlayStation VR, which we anticipate to be the most successful VR platform this year, just because the sheer number of people that have PlayStation 4s. Frank, you have PlayStation 4.
PlayStation 4.
It might be delayed. GameStop, the retailer, their CEO suggested that PlayStation VR would be shipping in fall of 2016. While even though PlayStation themselves last year said it would be in the first half of 2016, that would be
Which is
released.
a pretty big delay.
It would be. It would make it a holiday thing, more like a Kinect, which isn't necessarily a bad thing for VR because like Kinect was released in the holidays. We're not going to get a whole new console this year. So for people who want to buy new hardware, it could be the right timing for them. For VR enthusiasts, though, we kind of wanted our first half of 2016 release. Now we saw, Oculus coming out end of March, beginning of April. Vive's coming out April. So on the PC side, we're going to have a lot of VR content. But on the console side, maybe it's the right move from a marketing perspective, too. Let that hype build up. I know, Frank, you're interested in VR. You tried Will's Vive.
Oh, I love it. I want to play with that more.
Now, would you be interested in getting VR for your PlayStation? Though,
Absolutely.
For games?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think
Holiday season.
Yeah.
How much
Though-
would you pay? Like a PlayStation 4 is $350. What would you pay for the VR part of it? To give you context, the Oculus, which is the only thing that has its price release, and you can pre-order it, $600, and you got to have about $1,000 PC.
I don't know. I guess as an uneducated person, I would say I wouldn't want to spend more than $200 or $300 on that. I already have the Kinect. It was given to me. I have yet to hook it up.
Oh, okay.
Only because my PlayStation sits behind my couch, and to run the cable all the way to the front of the room is just kind of silly right now. Because it's closer to my projector.
That price point sounds about right. I think in terms of what I think most consumers want, they want to pay less than their console for the upgraded.
Very
hardware.
few console accessories actually end up costing more than the actual console itself. Although VR, you could argue, it could not double the capabilities, but it adds a whole new experience. You're also going to need the PlayStation Eye and the Move controllers to get the full VR stuff. I don't know if you have that. So maybe the headset and the breakout box would be under $300. Who knows? But again, you also need those other accessories to make it fully work
What
on the PlayStation.
So it won't work with the Kinect. It needs to
No,
have the
Kinect
Eye?
is Xbox.
Oh, all right. Well, whatever. What's the PlayStation?
The Eye thing.
Okay, then
That's the
thing,
one you have.
That's
Okay.
the thing that I have.
That's the one that you need. That you
yeah,
would
which
need.
I haven't hooked up. Okay, so I
yeah.
have that.
So you would hook up that. Well, having accessories or having hardware that you end up only using for a little bit and put away in a drawer or not hook up is exactly the fear that I think a lot of VR hardware makers have with the VR. Palmer Luckey talked at the Unity Vision Summit last week actually, about they expect more than hundreds of thousands of VR headsets on their side to ship this year. But what they don't want to do is sell a headset that people are going to buy, use for a week, and then put in the drawer. What they want to do is have a compelling lineup of content and have a
Fruit
comfortable
Ninja.
experience. Well, for Oculus, you're not going to get that at launch because you're not going to have the controllers until later in the year. So and I think VR enthusiasts, we're going to buy headsets, we're going to use them pretty regularly. It's going to be, I think, a good opening lineup just based on what's announced. But for the mainstream user, for the PlayStation 4 owners who buy PlayStation VR, it needs to be something that can't be the Microsoft Kinect, where it was fun to use for a holiday, and they sold a lot of them, but ended up not in the long run not being essential to the ecosystem.
Well, there stopped being great content for it. Like there weren't this like killer game, and if this delay is not about hardware but about building a library of content, then kudos to PlayStation on that. I think that's a good call.
And from what they have shown at events in the past, E3, other events, they have a lot of games. Some stuff that's going to be on all the platforms, but some of the unique exclusive stuff just for PlayStation. They know how to make games, and they know how to work with developers to make games. Other things that came out of the Unity Vision Summit. There's going to be, Google's there talking about Cardboard a little bit, talking about Project Tango. The Void is at TED this week, so that's the interactive. Think of it as Chuck E. Cheese for VR.
Yeah, I've seen the reviews look great from
Yeah.
people at TED.
Right. They set up a specific. So it's an institution in Utah. It's a big facility that they have. They have a unique proprietary VR headset with a backpack, so it's wireless tracking system, and then they do things with the environment, with like heat cues, light cues, motion cues, haptic cues. The rooms actually move a little bit to give redirected walking. So even though you're walking down one path, they'll shift it around to make you feel like you're walking through a maze. And they have a bunch of different pre-programmed experiences, from hunting aliens to tomb raiding, Indiana Jones-like simulator.
That's the one I've heard the most about, is the Indiana Jones one.
Right. So you can be walking down a path. Think of like Raiders of the Lost Ark. You're going to find the treasure, and you're walking down a path. And just like in Disneyland, it's like Imagineering stuff. They can blow air at you for darts. They can use heat, or you can walk up to a waterfall and then have like light mist. All of these things will enhance the VR experience. And so they demoed a custom-built version of that at TED, which Adam's at this week.
Yeah,
so
do you think he's going to check it out?
I really hope so. I'm so jealous that he would get.
But
to check
has
it
he
out.
tried out much stuff in VR?
A little bit. He tried the Vive. He's tried. I don't think he's tried this.
He was jamming Fruit Ninja.
Yeah,
But
I have video.
I don't know if he gets motion sick. That's why I was wondering.
He doesn't get motion sick.
Oh, then
Yeah.
then he'll have a good time.
And then speaking of the Vive, Gabe Newell of Valve Software gave everyone at the Unity Vision Summit all developers,
Oprah moment.
He called it his Oprah moment. Gave him a free Vive.
Oh, which was pretty awesome. That
Yeah.
crowd reacted in a pretty big way there. So it was actually good to hear Gabe come in and actually talk about stuff. Everything I've heard out of Valve and Steam has been through like press releases or other agents. So it was fun to actually see Gabe and his enthusiasm and excitement for it.
The other thing out of the Unity Vision Summit is Sundance. They showed us a new demo done, I think, by USC. Right, USC did this really elaborate VR experience, AR and VR experience, where designed in Unity, but you basically were like an alchemist, and you created a squid creature, and you wore these VR goggles, and you were interacting with tracked real objects. You had like green screen objects in front of you that you would pick up and turn levers and knobs, and you create this creature, and then you become the creature and fly out into the world. The idea behind that was not only to introduce a lot of the filmmakers at Sundance and film critics to VR and storytelling in VR, but really tap into all the AR and VR and all the different ways that you can have these experiences, not just rotating your head and looking at 360 video.
I didn't see a video montage of this. Did you?
Yeah, it was a part of the keynote. If you look for the keynote for the Unity Vision Summit, John Riccatello, who was the CEO of EA, he's CEO now of Unity, he emceed that, and then they introduced the speakers. The guy who did, I don't know if it was USC, but the guy who did the Minority Report visualizations and all that conceptual building, he talked about how for Minority Report, and this is why he's excited for VR. For Minority Report, they built that world, with the cars, the transportation system, the architecture of DC, the interfaces, all those ad systems. They built that before the script was fully written. All they knew was that they were creating a world set in the relatively near future. So they brought in futurists, and he himself, worked in human-computer interaction design, and so all that came about. And then Spielberg took those ideas and combined them into the story. So, which is a really interesting way to write a story, and that's what he thinks VR can do. VR is about building worlds that you can then tell the story in, as opposed to building a world for a specific story. You're allowing users to create these entirely new worlds and then have really cool interactions in them.
I mean, if they can replicate like an experience like Firewatch, which I finally finished this week in VR, I would be blown away. And it doesn't have to be spectacular visuals, but that storytelling through VR would just be fantastic. So I'm hoping for it.
All right, and I think that's it for the VR Minute. We'll have a longer one next week. But now for our last segment, Testing this week.
You're not a fan of the
What?
transition music.
No. This is fine.
Well, you're about to stab your eye out during it.
I j-
Hey, what have you guys been testing?
I think Frank should go first.
All right.
I don't.
What have you been making?
I've been making trophies for NASCAR actually lately.
Ooh.
NASCAR, yeah. There's a company called Mechanics Wear. They make gloves that you see on mechanics' hands, and they give out a trophy every year to the most valuable pit crew. And I don't know if you've ever watched like pit crew videos for NASCAR, or Formula, or anything.
Super intense.
Yeah, it's insane. And the guys that run out and change the tires on NASCAR are also the people that build and maintain the car. So they're also mechanics and everything. So I'm not a huge fan of NASCAR. I think it's a pretty boring thing to watch. But the technology that goes into it is pretty neat, and the vehicle stuff. And so they make this trophy for the pit crews. It's called the Most Valuable Pit Crew Award. And I've been building those for a bunch of years. And then just this year, they decided to make miniature versions of them to give out to all the mechanics. So not only does the team get this big 30-inch tall chromed glove holding an impact wrench, but it also gets
Oh, cool.
little half size versions for all the mechanics. So I built all those, and the way we did that was take the full size one, which was based off a life cast, and we model built everything. And we had it scanned and 3D printed, and then I made small versions, which we cast up and then chromed.
Did you use Norm's hand from that last year's project?
No, this is
Nice.
all.
Gripping a big. No, you've had them before.
Yeah, these are all real NASCAR.
That's
movies.
cool.
Yeah, it's pretty. So that's.
And you're up here this week. What are you guys building? I'm assuming you're building something.
Yeah, so we can't talk about too much. You will be doing some week of builds
Yeah.
with Frank and me and Sean in the coming weeks.
But you are
and
building
months.
something.
We're definitely building
Yeah,
stuff.
we're doing some.
Yesterday Frank was in town. We hung out and built some Gundam.
Oh.
So I tweeted a picture of that.
Yeah,
and Instagrammed it.
Yeah, that was
So
last night. We were.
nice painting.
Painting.
So been messing around with that stuff. I do want to jump back because I'm reading up to date news. Like last week, we had some breaking news.
Oh, what's breaking now?
Leap Motion has has pivoted. They announced a new system called Orion, I believe, and it's revamped hand tracking that's getting built directly into VR headsets, which is nice. People are also experimenting with positional tracking with cameras, with single camera on smartphones. Also, jumping back to tech news, if you use Google Shopping Express, they're now also doing groceries for orders $35 and up. Some interesting stuff. Sorry. Kishore, what have you been testing?
So I was on the market for an Android watch, and I was really looking hard at the Huawei watch, but the Moto 360 and the flat tire, I just couldn't get over it. So I ended up going with the LG Urbane G, which is an old watch, but $400 for the Huawei versus basically $170 for this one. But I'm trying it out. I love it. I replaced the band. It's not as clunky as I thought it was.
That's a
and
nice
I'm
looking
trying.
watch.
I'm trying some of the new Android Wear features, including like the flick to advance and scroll. So that's been fun. And then I'm still on Project Fi, and we're shooting a video later
Yes.
about the Nexus 6P and Project Fi, about my opinions about that.
Awesome.
I
How
am
about you?
testing something.
Oh, what are you testing?
I just got a new laser in the shop.
Yeah, laser cutter.
Yeah, I got a big laser from Universal Laser.
Nice.
And,
How big of a machine is it?
18 by 32 bed. It's pretty good size.
That's a good size.
It's an industrial laser, and so me and a couple other guys that work for me down in LA have been kind of putting it through its paces and trying to see what kind of crazy stuff we can cut.
Nice. Does it? I mean, what kind of materials can it get through?
It can't cut metal. It can engrave metal because it's not a fiber. It's a CO2 laser, and I got 150 watts, I believe. So I got
It's
a
still pretty beefy.
pretty strong one. Yeah, we're testing a bunch of settings, and I wanna be well versed in using this so that when Norman tested and everybody gets the Glowforge, I have a benchmark of stuff that's already out there.
On the professional side, and things to look out for.
Yeah.
Because you'll be looking at it from a professional's eye.
Well, the first thing that's really coming into my mind with all of this is like all the safety and all. Like I think that there's a lot of understated safety issues with lasers. The more I learn about them, the more that I'm learning that that's a huge issue.
All right.
How about you, Norm? Anything you're testing?
Doing a couple projects, building some fun model kits. Can't say too much about some of the stuff. There'll be some products being announced soon that we've been checking out.
And I think the Roku 4 review went up
Yes,
yesterday.
Patrick and I reviewed the Roku 4. That's out. We liked it. I think liked it more. Recommend the Roku 3 still. Again, going back to 4K, there's not enough content to warrant that $50 difference. But if you spent $2,000 on a 4K TV last year, then spending an extra $50 on a Roku 4 to get 4K, not a bad idea.
I almost bought a Roku earlier this year when Ash vs. the Evil Dead came out.
Yep.
The only app that had stars at the time was a Roku, and just to watch Ash vs. the Evil Dead, I almost bought a Roku just so I could watch Ash vs. the
But
Evil
you need
Dead.
you need to pay for a Star subscription.
I know, and like all of that was so prohibitive to me. I just waited until it was available on iTunes.
By the way, Bruce Campbell did a nice Twitter shout out to like practical effects people.
Yeah, it was
like yesterday or 2 days ago.
It's such a it picks up off of the sentiment and the feel of Evil Dead 2, and it's exactly what I wanted it to be. I love that show.
Awesome. Well, we'll have more stuff on Tested in next week and on the site all this week. Actually, today you can watch a video of Kishore and I at Stanford's
Cool.
virtual human interaction lab, where we go more in depth about the VR stuff. We talked about this last week.
About the
also.
psychology of
Yes,
VR.
the psychology and the psychological and behavioral effects of VR and what researchers can study
And
have
hopefully
been studying.
simple feats of science. We'll be back soon.
Yes. Love to get your feedback. Post in the comments. Thank you, everyone who listens. Especially thank you, I believe, John Ridley, who's the guy who posts the timestamps for our podcast. Thank you for everyone who created our intro musics. I like playing the intro musics for each of our segments. I think
I think it's cool.
we should have music for tech news, for Apple News, for Microsoft News, for Google News. I want intro music segments for everything. It's a great way to segment out the podcast. But we also have outro music segments as well.
You need a song or a music segment for Frank Says Something Stupid.
Let's come up with a better name for that segment
Yeah, we'll
first
come up with a better name.
before we come up with the music. But we do have outro
Frank being
music.
Frank.
And this week's outro music is created by Jonathan X. He posted it on our forums. You can too. And we'll see you next week.
Hi there, I didn't see you.
Tested.
Oh my god, it's so pretty. Look at that.
That's private, man. Tested.
It really, really is.
I don't even think that was from our podcast.
Hi there, I didn't see you.
No, stop playing it over again.
See you next week.
See you next week.